I know Mike has told us that Kendall is unlikely to play this week. So you obviously have options with Elijah in a 3-safety look. You have Saran Neal, but it's been primarily since Cam Smith, left the lineup now, or it's obviously been Storm Duck primarily. What has made you guys want to invest more time in him as opposed to, say, someone else on the roster finding a veteran on the street?
Oh, man. Again, I think it's just a testament to the kid and his consistency, right? He has continually developed all throughout camp and throughout the season. And he's just a guy that I think his teammates and both teammates and coaches alike trust. That's not to take away from some of the other guys that are on the roster, too. I have a tremendous amount of faith in Ethan Bonner. If he's out there and he's on the field. When Saran Neal's in there, I have confidence in him. But in terms of just the outside corner position, I think Storm has played his way into that role.
I'm gonna name Zach Sealer, the Palm Beach Post most outstanding Dolphin of the year, even though there's 2 weeks left. But that's just my personal choice. How would you describe Zach in one word?
Whew, that's difficult. One word. He is determined. Right. I think that's the word. Just because he's one of those guys you just think about his kind of path to the league, getting cut from Baltimore, had every opportunity to kind of go the other way and say, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. This isn't my path. But throughout all adversity he's faced in this sport, he has shown just a resilience and a true determined attitude to persevere. So that's why.
You had a 16-year-old. 4-star defensive lineman at Christmas dinner there, and he said, "Hey, what would you tell him about Zach? Like, hey, watch this or know this."
Yeah, I would tell him. If he was at dinner, I'd make sure he was around me every day so he could see more of the ins and outs of what Zach does, because I think it's truly his day-to-day operation with how he approaches all aspects of work, which is why he has the success he has on Sundays.
We've Jordan Poyer. We saw the play with Deebo Samuel there toward the goal line. I think George Kittle also got him earlier in the game, but on both of those, it looked to me like Poyer came in with bad form, head down. Is that the case? And if it is, do you talk to him about that, or do you just think he's a vet, he knows what he did wrong?
Yeah, I think singling out Jordan in those 2 particular instances are kind of, that's rough to me, right? It's not like the 2 guys you mentioned, like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, are like me and, Brian Duker, who's going to be up here later. Those 2 guys are obviously physical players, and they make a lot of people miss tackles. I watched the game yesterday. I'm sure, I'm sure D'Amico on the other side saying, hey, we got to contain Lamar Jackson. We got to keep him in the pocket, guys, right? You go into it with those mindsets, but there's some great players out there, and they force you to sometimes, unfortunately, look bad on defense. So yeah, could Poe run his feet? Could he go lower? Can he make sure he wrap up? Yeah, we can talk about that till we're blue in the face. It's a bunch of coach speak, but those guys are going to make plays too, and we got to make sure we get more people to the ball so we don't have those one-on-one situations.
A guy like Jerry Jeudy, who has not had the production early in his career, gets to Cleveland and takes off. We knew he was talented as a first-round pick, but now the production matches the talent. What's changed for him in Cleveland to make him so productive, do you think?
Yeah, that's difficult to say. When I've seen him in the past, again, haven't played against him a bunch, but you always saw the talent there, right? In terms of short area quickness, his speed, his ability to catch the ball, to go up and get it, his instincts, he has all that. So if anything's changed, I think it's probably just more opportunities, if anything, for him. Just quarterbacks just having willingness to throw him and give him opportunities to make those plays, because the skill set and talent has always been there.
Are you optimistic about having both Anthony Walker and Jordan available on Sunday?
Yeah, we'll see. I know those guys are certainly working through bumps and bruises. Probably feel, kind of guessing on both, but I'm betting on the Warriors that they are, in hopes that they'll both be out there.
And with backups, is there position versatility with Duke and with Tyrell, where we saw obviously Duke replace Jordan? Could Tyrell have gone in there, or do you like each guy backing up those 2 guys?
Yeah, since Tyrell has been here, he's focused primarily on the Mike position, right, on playing middle backer. Now, could he play Will? Absolutely. The kid is incredibly smart, has high FBI. Duke has played them both. So we have a tremendous amount of confidence going out there and execute. Really, he's played some sandbacker for us too. So you talk about just a multitude of skill sets for him. He's played all over. So we trust him in whatever backer role he happens to be in.
Anthony, I'd like to get a defensive coordinator's perspective on this. Achane is setting all kinds of records now, not just running the ball, but as a receiver. I know there aren't a lot of players who can do what he can do in this league, but when you go against someone like that, what sort of headaches does it cause for a defensive coordinator that other players would not?
Yeah, he's an absolute nightmare. And I imagine, again, I'm not trying to put this tag on him, and he has a long way to go to reach this, but I imagine coordinators were having the same conversation when they were facing Marshall Faulk, right? A guy who, from the backfield, could definitely hurt you, could run with physicality, can hit you on the edge. But then when you split him out, particularly if you're matched up against the backer, you have no chance. So when you're facing guys like him, you got to be cognizant of where he's at every play, and it's probably going to force you to play more zone than you want to.
What are your memories of Mike 10 years ago when you guys were together in Cleveland, where you returned this week?
Oh man, we were a lot colder than we are now. But Mike was as hard a worker from a coaching standpoint as I've ever seen. You hear just nowadays, even now, he still gets here super early, stays super late. Probably doesn't stay as late as he once did because he now has a daughter, right? It's important that he gets home to spend time with her. But even back then, as I don't want to say younger coach at that point, he was probably 10 years into his NFL career. But I saw very early, like, when we talked football, he saw it differently, right? I would always leave every conversation with him thinking like, oh man, he gets it. He gets the big picture wise. And then when you would talk to his players in the wide receiver room, you could just tell they had a genuine appreciation and love for who he was and how he taught. So, yeah, man, I love him. And even back then, I kind of knew this was coming.
The decision with Chop to have him play, it's obviously been substantial playing time. You've gotten great production. Less than Agba each week. Mm-hmm. Is that because of a desire to have Quentin Bell in on run-heavy downs? Is it you need to see more from Chop? What goes into that?
No, I think it's just making sure all those guys see the field, because we think they can impact the game in a multitude of ways. Chop, I think, again, the more you play him, he's going to be efficient at everything, right? Run game, pass game, all of it. I think he's really gotten to the point where he could do that now. But Agba's a bigger body, right? And sometimes you want those bigger bodies out there to set a more firm edge and do things of that nature. You have Q Bell, who probably a little bit more proficient in some of the things we do from a pass coverage standpoint when he's out there. So they all have a multitude of skill sets, and we just kind of try to blend them in based on what we think we're going to get schematically from the office in that particular time.
And with Cam Good, how do you make a decision on how much to incorporate in defensively? Obviously, he hasn't played in a year. Yeah. He doesn't have a ton of defensive snaps on film, body of work.
Yeah, I tell you what, when I didn't know much about Cam coming in, and I knew he was battling through the injury. You watched some limited snaps from a year ago, and you saw something there, but you knew he was still a fairly young player, particularly as an edge defender, right? But man, he has a skill set, and he works so hard that you can easily see how that will translate to success in this league. I think particularly once he gets a full offseason of just training his body and getting bigger, he can be even more impactful. But when he's out there right now, we have all the faith in him to go out there and execute the jobs we need him to.
How has Chubb responded to the unfortunate reality that he will not be able to participate this season?
Yeah, I think we were all cautiously optimistic that he'd get out there and play this year, particularly with the severity of the injury he had. It was incredibly encouraging to see him go out there these past 3 weeks and play. And I hope that provides confidence in what he can be when he does come back. So, he's probably disappointed, right, just because he has put in the work. But again, I hope that he feels confident that when he does return, he'll be everything he was and more.
I want to ask you about your defense. Obviously, we talked to you all year. You always say points is that's the number one barometer.
Yeah, for sure.
You're number 8 in yards allowed. You're number 10 in points allowed. But yet you guys don't get many sacks and you don't get much turnovers. Why do you think you're having this level of success you're having as a unit without the big play production?
Yeah, I think it's just that. All right, I think whatever group of 11 you see out there, they're doing everything possible to play with effort and energy and play together. And when you have that, yeah, sometimes you don't make the big plays and you don't have sacks and some of those nature. I think the sack stats are a little bit overrated personally, but turnovers we certainly have to increase. And some of that sometimes I think it's just the way the ball bounces, right? Even last game, I think we probably had like 4 or 5 pick opportunities that if the ball is a foot either way, we get those. So I think it's a credit both to the players and the coaching staff of buying in to both culturally what we're trying to instill and then schematically going out there and playing with, again, the effort, the energy, the physicality, the tenacity, which is why those numbers are where they are. We certainly need to increase the turnovers for sure.
The 12 men on the field penalty, I thought you guys were off, but maybe not. But my question is, should that be a literal interpretation of the rule? Like, you guys weren't going to get an advantage. Should it be a literal interpretation, or should there be some leeway?
I think it should be as literal as when the clock hits 0, and it's not a delay game. So, to me, those fall into the same barometer. So.
Should that be a reviewable play? Because
well, I mean, he should have to look. I hear that all the time.
We've Travis mentioned covering Jerry Jeudy. What do you think of David Njoku, especially given the struggles this defense has had covering good tight ends?
Yeah, I think he's banged up a little bit, so he can take a week off. I understand. I get it. But has faced Dave now for a number of years, right? Having to go against him twice a year in Baltimore, and he's a dynamic player, right? When he gets the ball in his hand, he can tremendous yak, right? Yards after catch, he can run through people, and he's a huge target down in the red zone. So for us in particular, like, he's going to have his catches in the normal field, yeah, we have to be cognizant of that, but particularly when they're down the red zone, we got to make sure we try to take him away.
You mentioned Quentin Bell. I was curious because I'm looking at his snap counts. He played about 10 reps in October, and since then has played almost 200 snaps. What has he done to earn that elevation of playing time?
Again, I think it's just his development, right? He's shown through work on the practice field that he can be trusted, not only to go out there and execute his job, but to execute at a high level and make plays. So he's one of those guys that really, early on when I got here, you can kind of see he's another one of those guys you could see that just wasn't going to be denied. And regardless of where he fell in the depth chart, who was in front of him, he was going to earn his way onto that field, whether that be on special teams or on defense. So that's truly a testament to the kid and the work he's put in.
What's your role in the red challenge flag process? Benito had he had the challenge last week, the play. What did they ask you? What do you think, or do you contribute a thought? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't have much contribution into it at all. That's truly a decision that comes from Mike and whoever he listens to on the other headset. So
on the right guard thing, was the thinking with you and Butch and Mike that you would eventually like to settle on one guy, or do you like the idea potentially the rest of the way of the platoon?
I think that it was a solution towards getting Isaiah involved. You know, Liam's been working through some stuff, so the ability to get guys fresher through the course of the game. And we think it boded pretty well, and, you know, each week we'll evaluate what's best for the opponent to put our guys in the best position possible. So, we were very pleased with how it worked out last week.
Frank, on the pass that Tua throws to Tyreek in the end zone and it's tipped, Tua took a hit on that. Are you at the stage where you still will notice that, or do you and wonder and you know, cross your fingers, or are you kind of past that as far as Tua and a possible injury?
I think it's more of when you're going to any game, you're always trying to minimize contact to the quarterback through your pass protection system. So I think ultimately we're always evaluating, you know, how the pocket's going, how we're able to protect, and trying to choose the right schemes to attack through that approach. So ultimately, I think the line did a great job pass protecting and Tua delivering the ball and the skill being in the right spots. And I think it's ultimately our goal is to make sure that we protect the quarterback and use our skill to understand concepts, launch points, and everything, so make sure we can keep it successful.
Should Tyreek have caught that pass?
Well, it's one of those things where it got tipped at the last second, so when those things happen, it's like your vision gets changed. So I know the competitor in him, you know, wants the ops again, and I know the stuff he's going to be working on this week to get better at.
is staying with Tyreek. Is there any chance, we know that he's a great troll. Is there any chance at the end of the season that the left wrist thing, he tweets, I got y'all again? Is there, or is this a legit left? And I know he's been treated for it. He's been on the injury report, but is this a troll job?
I was a troll. I was like, are you commenting about his height or where we're going there? I was like, come on, Chris. Like, yeah, someone seeks attention. I gotcha. No, Tyreek's been awesome working through, the pain that it involves, and it's hard when you're trying to catch the ball and do all the things. So I think him working through it and making sure we're connected on the same page for timing, all that's going to be obviously of most importance this week.
It's always harder for an offense to operate on the road for various reasons. How has the road operation been overall throughout the season?
Well, I think early in the year it was something that we wanted to improve on. In the short week, it was an area that we knew we could have improved on, and I think that's just always your goal when you're moving like we do to try and create leverage on the defense, is to make sure that we're operating together, having the balance of things where it's you're trying to get premier look and making sure you have plays that you can get lined up fast and be able to attack. So, I think there's times this season that we think that we could have been better, and the good thing is we get this chance this weekend to go up there and really improve upon things that we would like to be able to do over again, and that's what each game provides.
There might be some cold rain over there. Do you have to prepare wet ball drills, things like that? Or
yeah, we go through the process to get ready for that. It's, one thing, I've been up to Cleveland 3 times, and each 3 times it was different weather. So with it being right on the lake, I think in COVID in 20, when I was with the Raiders, it was sunny, it snowed, it sleeted, and it rained all in the same game.
different quarters, each one?
Yes. Yeah. You're always giving, I feel like my vocabulary is I'm just struggling lately. I know. Now I feel vexed. Yeah. Yes. But yes, we work all our preparations for the weather, just depending upon what it is. But it's Cleveland, you never know.
I know, obviously, Chris Greer and Eric and scouts and everyone had an appreciation for A-Shane's hands and receiving ability coming in. But was there a moment with you and Mike and Eric in meetings the last couple of years, or even on the practice field, where you said to yourselves, this guy's ability as a receiver, his hands are special. We want to utilize that even more. Any perspective on how good he is on that you could share?
I think it started with his college tape. Like at A&M, you could see his ability to play the ball in the air. Necessarily sometimes in college, there's different things they're trying to do and they use their backs different ways, but you could see it on his college tape in balls in the air and his ability to track it, running vertical routes. And that's not easy, especially coming out of the backfield or the different things they had him do. So we knew that coming in, that was going to be something that he could do well. And credit to him working his tail off to make sure he's been ready on the multitude of things we could ask him to do. And I think it just plays to how dynamic of a back he is and all the different things he can do.
How much sleep have you lost this week trying to think of protections for Myles Garrett?
Well, the gauntlet of the last couple of weeks hasn't been necessarily easy for us with all the rushers we've had to do. I think he's a special player, high-end guy that you always have to be mindful of, and it'll be a good challenge for us. And I would say the last month have been kind of tiring from that standpoint as long the whole season. But yeah, we'll have respect for his game, and we'll have to be ready for him.
Might he get the Max Crosby treatment?
There's a multitude of things that we'll have to do because with him, he's a very talented guy, and I think that the different variables that we'll have to do will, when you have an elite guy to that level, you can't just do one thing. You have to do a multitude of things. So he gets high-level treatment like, Bosa and like Max did and like other guys we faced last month.
Coach, how would you describe the matchup of going up against a Jim Schwartz coach defense?
Well coached, do a bunch of schematic overlaps. They try and have a lot of disguise to what they do. They play hard, physical. You can tell it's a well-coached group, and it'll be a good opportunity for us to go on the road and be ready to be on our details because they are going to be aggressive to the ball and play hard to the end.
How did Wynn do
Did well. I mean, the run we had at the end, he was able to really block the three and shut it down. I think he did a great job in his first opportunity back, and he's an energy guy. I mean, he's one thing. He loves ball, so to have him back was awesome, and it's just another element to the room that of a guy that just is all ball and loves playing hard.
Danny, the process for determining how far Jason can kick pregame, can you walk me through that? Is it after he kicks, you talk to him and you decide which direction and how far he can go each way?
Well, he's got his pregame sequence that we worked through and established years ago, and there's going to be some games based on elements that we may tweak that slightly, but it's going to be a lot of just communication on what we're doing, what we're thinking, whether it be wind, whether it be cold, whether it be field conditions. There's some stadiums where one end may be better than the other. So we'll talk through all that pregame and then again right before the game starts, because we've been some of those games where you think it's A and then you come out 45 minutes later and some things can change, whether it be especially with wind and or rain, and then you tweak it. But it's just having a great line of open communication.
And how does rain affect a kick? I mean, obviously the ball is going to be wet, but does it not carry as far?
Very, very minimal, unless it's a downpour. Very minimal. But you tie that into the operation of the snap and the hold. That's where it gets a little bit with not as much as the kick, but the snap and the hold with the wet ball is a little bit more of an issue.
You just detailed the run that Jason has been on, making all these consecutive field goals and having the performance he just had for AFC's Special Teams Player of the Week.
Just in a good spot, both physically and mentally, and like we've talked about in here, when he hits a bad ball, he doesn't let it affect him. Which, we talk about the mental aspect in a lot of different ways. The mental aspect can be, if you miss one, you start over analyzing technique. You start overthinking, what you're doing and how you're doing it. So there's a lot of, when we say mental, there's more to it than just where your space is. But Jason doesn't let things bother him, which I think is one of his strongest traits. That if he doesn't hit a good ball, he doesn't think about it, doesn't dwell on it. It's not going to overreact to that. So again, he's in a good spot right now. The operation's been good. Jake's been outstanding, holding with our multitude of snappers. So, really good space, but there's a lot more work to do.
Julian Hill had a tackle on a punt return where he gets the guy's shoulder and brings him down. How has he done on special teams? He seems like we know he's physical, very athletic. He runs well. How has he done on special teams? He's
done very well. That's one of our great finds here with our personnel department and our development. As coaches, they've done a really good job with Julian, and he just keeps getting better and better. The more that he keeps playing on offense, it's hard, but he keeps grinding. He wants to be involved in the kicking game and does a very good job for us.
It looks like kickoff return touchdowns have gone from 2 to 4 to 6 this year. Mm-hmm. What have we learned now that the season's almost over about the new rule and how that's impacted the number of returns, the average, and the touchdown rate?
I think the biggest thing with this setup is, one error can really lead to a big play for the return team and a really negative play for the coverage team, because based on where the intent of that return goes, there's a portion of the field where some players they get lost, where they're, regardless of what happens, they really have a hard time being impactful in the play because there's no time. Whereas, with the space of covering down the field, there was more time and availability and vision for some guys on, i.e. the backside maybe of coverage, where they can find themselves involved in the play. Now it happens so quickly that, you get one guy fits outside, one guy fits inside on a vertical return where that guy doesn't have to make any kind of movement. Your backside players are really having a hard time getting there to be a factor in the play. So I think that there's some things maybe that can be tweaked, but I think it's going to be, when it does, I think it's going to be really good for the game going forward.
Speaking of return touchdowns, I think the Browns have given up one on kickoff and on a punt. Mm-hmm. What have you seen on Those plays.
Well, again, the kickoff return was a fit deal. You know, one guy stuck, guy tried to get over the top and sort of got passed off on a double team, and Cincinnati made a good play. But they're a good group. You know, they were really, really good a year ago. They're still good this year. You know, again, one or two plays, that's where, you know, things get tilted. You give up a play or two and, you know, your numbers get skewed. But they're a good group, and they're well coached, and they're playing well. But those plays obviously are monster plays, and you know, you're looking for them. You can't give them up, but you know, you can play very, very well for, you know, 80 plays, and you give up one of those, and it's a backbreaker.
Coach, I want to ask you just about Jason Sanders' headspace and mentality. Just getting to know him over the last 5 or 6 years here, it seems like nothing really bothers him. We've seen him have some highs and lows, but it seems like he's always in that same plane. So I'm curious if you could help describe how valuable that is as a kicker, and also when you recognize that in him with kind of that steady mentality that he has.
Right. Well, as we said, you know, he does a great job of moving on. It's the next. It's not the past. And you could see that for me right when I started working with him 6 years ago. He wouldn't, you know, he's willing to try anything. You talk technique and tweak this, and what about this, and why don't we try this? He's willing to try everything and exhaust it, and then very concise and clear on what he likes and what he doesn't like. But as I said, most importantly, whether he hits a great ball or hits a poor ball, he's able to move on to the next one. If anything ever gets into a rhythm where it is a consistent maybe fade or draw, you know, understands from Jump Street, you know, don't tweak what I'm doing. There's other ways we can help that as an operation. So, you know, he's not going to miss one right and pull the next one left because he's going to overreact.
Danny, who would be your special teams MVP this season and why? And if it's Jason Sanders, who would be number 2?
Yeah, I'm worried about today's practice and getting some guys ready and then playing a game this week. The accumulation of the season is, I'm not even close to that yet.
Danny, another question. Jason Sanders' question. In 2020, he was about the best kicker in the entire NFL. Do you see him being back at that point?
You know, I've always felt that he was in that group. You know, sometimes the results don't equal that, and that's the nature of this beast. It's all about the results. But you know, I've felt, and I don't know, you guys probably understand it. You know, I'm his biggest supporter. I think he's outstanding, and I'm just very, very thankful and glad that he's back having the success that, you know, that we think he's capable of.
With Tyreek, obviously, the numbers aren't at the standards. Do you think, and a lot's obviously been made the last 2 weeks of catchable balls, has he had a good year in your mind? Has he had a year that you both agree is not up to what he's capable of?
Yeah, I mean, I think every year is kind of different, you know, in the way people play you, or, you know, anytime you have as much success as he's had in the past few years here, you know, obviously people are going to spend time and try and find ways to, you know, make it harder for him and all those different things. So, you know, I don't look at it that way. I'd see, you know, what I see on film, and as far as the execution and doing his job on a play in, play out basis, I think has been really, really good. You know, I mean, I'd have to go back through this offseason and really kind of pinpoint on what it is or what it isn't, or, you know, where we can get better and different things like that. But, you know, from assignment, technique, all those different things, you know, he's been really good, play in, play out, even blocking, or if he's not the primary in the route or whatever it is, like he's you know, if you watch a film, he's playing at a really high level.
Wes, we know, staying on Tyreek, we know that he's a prankster and a troll. He likes to have a great time. And I'm asking about this left wrist injury, and I know that he's been on the injury report, so he's been treated. Is there a chance at the end of the season he puts out a tweet and says, "Got y'all again, I didn't have a left wrist injury"?
No, that's real. That's real. Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, trust me, it better be real, because we've been talking about it a lot this year. But no, that's a real thing. And I mean, he's been a fighter this whole year, just, you know, dealing with it. You know, there's a lot of other guys with the same injury that have, gotten surgery and gone IR, and credit to him for sticking it out and toughing it out and doing what he needs to do to help this team win.
Wes, how's the level of attention he's gotten from defenses compared to the previous 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'd say pretty different. I'd say we saw some of the coverages, especially early on in the year. We saw them last year, but when they're basically taking two guys and putting them on you, it's tough. Just getting open one-on-one in the league is hard enough. But when you start using two people, that's when it gets tough. But it's been good to see, the emergence of Jonnu and Achan and everybody else just kind of stepping up their game, to take advantage of some of those coverages.
Fair to say that Tyreek kind of deserves almost an assist in those.
Oh, 100%. No, I mean, we talk about even the run plays, getting two shell. If him and Waddle are in the game, a lot of people are bringing heat to us. So it's just their presence a lot of times, opens up our offense just by them being out there.
I know it's an awkward question to ask, but you're always candid with us. Some receivers, obviously, when they get to 30, the level drops.
Mm-hmm.
With Tyreek, has the skill set diminished at all because of age? Is he just as fast? Have you seen any diminishment?
Yeah. No, I haven't. I mean, Reek is like one of those special athletes that, he'll be in his 40s running fast. I remember playing with Joey Galloway. I think he was like 37 or something like that. And he could still run. He could still had quickness at the line. Some of those guys are just different breeds that I don't necessarily you don't really put them on the metric scale of normal type of players.
It's sort of a funny question asking a receivers coach, but the way Achan is catching the ball this year, how much do you work with him? Does he sit in on the receiving meetings at all, or?
No, that's all Coach Studsville. That's all his doing. So obviously he's a really good player, really smart player, and does a great job route running and then he's got really good hands. So he's definitely been a great player for us this year, and really just you see his game evolving as time kind of goes on.
Do you compare him to anybody? Is there a comparable?
I don't want to go there yet, but it's up there. He's got a skill set and can do some different things that are pretty elite. And he's still a young player and still has some learning to go, but he's well on his way.
You're thinking of one or two players this year.
I am, but I don't want to go there yet.
Has Malik shown enough to you where you believe he's an NFL rotation receiver for years to come?
Absolutely. No, he's been awesome. His professionalism for a young player is about as good as anybody I've seen. All those things kind of, he practices, practices hard. He really on the details, he studies, he's on top of everything. Any questions he has, he's coming to me. So it's nice to have, a rookie that, is polished as him and really wants to get better each and every day. And you start stacking days like that, it's just a matter of time. And I think he's shown that he definitely belongs.
Coach, I have a very, very specific Waddle question for you. I was looking at his stats in third and long situations, and he has 8 targets on plays of 3rd and 7+, and he's converted 6 of those 8. So he's very, very adept at moving the chains on 3rd and long. Everyone knows about his speed, but I'm curious what other traits of his game makes him so valuable in those gotta-have-it situations.
Yeah, I think even just his skill set at the line of scrimmage. Every day, it was almost like a couple years of just his releases are so much more dynamic than what he was using earlier on, and so I believe like his releases have by far and away the best, almost the best part of his game, really. Just his skill set and being able to step outside his frame, and then the explosiveness that comes with that is pretty rare for an athlete. So he is fast too, which also helps and everything. But the releases at the line of scrimmage and really kind of nailing that stuff down. I mean, everything was a speed release for the longest time, and so. Getting him to really attack edges and go after people and using his feet more, I think is, a big part of his skill set that, he can continue to even get better with that, but he's come a long ways with it.
One more Tyreek thing for you. As you're watching film in your room and you see plays that Tyreek has made a lot in the past, there were good plays by the opponent, the Stingley thing at the end of the game, obviously the drops on Sunday. How mad does he get with himself? Do you get mad with him, or with an elite player that level, do you not need to ever?
No, he's he punishes himself with it. He's pretty critical of himself. He knows he's got to make some of those plays, and he wants to make those plays, and so he's just as mad at himself. So just trying to keep him in a good headspace, and we'll get the next play and whatever it is, and just trying to keep it moving. But he knows what he's up against, and what he needs to do to help the team win.
Well, staying on Tyreek, he expressed frustration at the vet rest days after the game. Mm-hmm. Had he talked about that earlier during the season? Have you talked about that? Do you think you guys should have revamped your approach this season in respect of?
Well, I mean, it's the hard part, right? Is he's dealing with his wrist. He's got ankle. There's always stuff through the year, and as you get older in the league, it's you're really kind of you got all those reps of knowing how to play the position, and now like how do we put the best product out there on Sunday without with being able to be fresh on Sunday. And so it's a fine balance of being able to get that done, but I think it's definitely something that we can revisit this offseason, come up with a plan or whatever, talk through, and but when guys do have stuff and they're trying to deal with it and they're trying to play through, and you just trusting your players of, all right, do we, how are you feeling today? How is it? Where is it at? Or whatever it is. And we just kind of roll from there.
River Craycraft, he had a pass that it looked like he should have caught. It was a high pass. Mm-hmm. It's a brutal league. Is there room to be human in that situation and say, River, you haven't played in a while? Or is it just, you got to make that play?
Yeah, I think we all expect to make those plays. I think Reek expects to make his plays. Riv expects to make his plays. Like we all, I think everybody's, expecting to make those plays in those situations, and nobody's trying to drop the ball. It's just, things happen. We just continue to work through it and continue to get better, and do what we need to do to put that best product out there on the field.
Is rust a legitimate explanation as opposed to an excuse in that situation?
I think everything comes through practice. So, I maybe, to say that that's what it is or whatever, it's tough to say, but definitely. I mean, you put that work in on the practice field, and those are the results that you'll get on Sunday.
Wes, there's a segment of Dolphins fans who will forever remain intrigued by Ezukama because of the size, the skill set, the preseason work. Obviously, he's earned enough trust to be elevated yesterday, hasn't reached the level of being a 53 player. What can you say after working with him for a couple of years, where he stands, what he has to do to gain traction as an NFL player?
Yeah, no, I think he's done an exceptional job as far as really kind of honing in on the offense. And, he was very good this Sunday when he was in there, and all those limited snaps and everything, he did a really nice job and continued to grow in that aspect. And never getting too comfortable with it or anything like that, but continue to press on. And, just because you have one good play one time or bad, whatever it is, you can never get too high, never get too low, and kind of stay that steady pace of consistency.
I know when coaches come in from other teams, as you did with Philly, you try not to have preconceived notions of players. But with that being said, is Cater Kohu better than you would have imagined?
I had high expectations for Cater. I had heard good things, so I don't know. I had high expectations, and he's met those. So
I asked it that way only because his rookie tape was really good. His second-year tape was not as good. So he's somehow gotten back to his level of performance as a rookie. What have you seen from him that's made him effective this year?
I think Cater does a really nice job preparing every week, first off. I think he is a very calm presence for us on the back end. He communicates well. He's where he's supposed to be. He does his technique well, and I think it just adds up. I think it showed up. He missed a couple games early in the season. I think you notice the defense moves better when he's out there. We communicate really well. Guys are on this. I think he's a very calming presence for us, and I appreciate that about him.
Staying on Cater, it seems to me from a distance that he's a very his preparation he takes very serious. He's very intentional. Like pre-game, he's out there going through things. He's got a process, and he's got his ropes. Is that accurate? Is that an accurate idea of Cater?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it just like you see it. Very professional. Does a good job, with his preparation every week, physically and mentally, and very happy with how he approaches it himself.
Do I have this right? You were an intern in Cleveland while Weave was there, but you missed Mike by a year.
That is true. Yep. I was with Weaver, and that was right as Mike was leaving, I was coming in.
What are your memories from that season?
It was good. It was my first year in the NFL, so I was drinking from a fire hose and trying to get it all figured out. So,
And Weave, what were your...
Weave was awesome. He and I had a really good relationship at that point. You certainly saw as a guy that had a bright future. I enjoyed, he and I had a good friendship, enjoyed being around him, and, he's been everything he thought he'd be.
So, Anthony was telling us that Storm Duck, is going to remain next man up with Kendall out behind Jalen Cater. He mentioned Bonner as well. He said even though he hasn't played, we still have faith in him. With him, what's the skill set that even though he hasn't played, Brian, you still see something there that you think could be an NFL corner?
Oh, yeah, he absolutely. I feel very confident in he being able to go in a game and play. A long, fast corner, again, really, he goes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier. I like his professionalism. I like his approach. I'd have tons of confidence putting him in a game.
What have you liked the most from Jalen Ramsey this season?
I think the thing that's shown up with Jalen this year, with his versatility, I think gives teams a lot of issues. And I think that's part of, when you get a guy, he has obviously a diverse skill set, and then his, I would say his mental preparation and kind of knowing all the different assignments, to be able to do a bunch of different things, you got to kind of be good on the assignments there. And that's kind of what I think that does is put stress on the offense as far as identifying who's where. Certainly you can see teams are very conscious of him as a blitzer and things of that nature.
How has the play of your starting safeties been this season, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm probably higher on the safeties than you guys are, but I think from an execution standpoint, overall, it's been pretty good. I know the pick numbers are something that stands out and gets harped on, but I think from a execution, communication standpoint, it's really good. I think a lot of times when you're a defensive back, the on-made play doesn't get noticed, but I think deterring throws is a big part of, if you're an elite shutdown corner, a lot of times you get no stats because they just don't throw your way and you had a great day. I think a lot of times that can be true with safety. You took away the deep part of the field and they don't test you because they're a little bit scared, So I don't mean that's a shot at anybody. I just think that sometimes there's plays that don't show up in the stat sheet that those guys do effectively that they don't get enough credit for.
What have you seen from Elijah Campbell this season?
I'm going to go back to the same kind of thing, but Elijah's a really good dude. He shows up every day to work. I think he has, a good athlete, and same kind of deal. I feel like I keep saying this, but I feel really good about any of those guys that got to get. If they play the game, I'm extremely confident in every one of those guys. Similar to just how I kind of talked about EB, good dude, good professional, good athlete. I would be very confident to play him.
You just mentioned in your answer before that, do you think some of those intangible things with DB sometimes is undervalued communication, the effect it has on a defense as a whole, as opposed to what people just simply see like a missed tackle here, a big play given up?
I think guys that obviously in today's NFL there's a lot of moving parts, and so a big part of that as a defensive back is, there's a lot of moving pieces and being able to sort some of those things out in the run and make sure everyone's on the same page. Like being on the same page as a secondary is probably one of the top traits you need to have. So the guys that get that done effectively are certainly add a lot of value to the defense.
Brian, since we're all looking for off-season content, this will be the only time we'll really have a chance to ask on practice squad guys at your position. Would you mind sharing what's the specific skill with Isaiah Johnson and with Maitre that have made you guys feel like they're worth investing more time in?
Sure. Let's start with Isaiah. Probably he's been here longer. I think the first thing that shows up with Isaiah is one of the smartest corners we've been around, and I think a big versatile skill set that he has gives you the ability to cover bigger bodies, and I think his intelligence combined with his length and movement skills allows you to move him around to cover unique positions or really big-bodied receivers. He could easily go play safety and cover a tight end. I have a lot of confidence in his intelligence, versatility, size, ball skills, athleticism. And then in regard to Maitre, to me, has a lot of cater traits, in him as far as he's a really good, quick. He obviously played a lot of nickel for us, and there I like his ball skills. I think he is also quick-minded. I think he does a good job as a communicator. I think he's a savvy blitzer. I think he's very good in his zone drops. Those are both good young guys for us.
Cam Smith has had a couple of injury-interrupted seasons. Would he be ready to step in as a full-time starter right now, or does he still, and this wouldn't be a criticism, does he still need a little more seasoning, do you think?
I think the biggest thing that I've talked to Cam about is that would like to see him put on the body armor to make it through a full season. He's got to be in shape to do that. Certainly when he's out there, we have confidence in him. It's not a matter of that. It's more a matter of being able to get through a season. And I think your body has to be in shape to do that. So that's why I was kind of hyped up to him the other day was let's have a really good off season, come back in great shape.